Hey everyone, I wanted to go over the new and exciting news that we have for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, as we now have a direct developer quote explaining just what were some of the differences and the biggest takeaways that they had from Monster Hunter World heading into Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, and what were some of the things that they decided to influence them for the development of this game. Remember that, of course, Monster Hunter World is able to run on much more powerful consoles, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and then of course PS5, Xbox Series, and so on, where the Switch is limited hardware-wise. So we got a couple of interesting quotes based on the interview that was posted originally on Nintendo Dream. This is a Japanese outlet, so it has been officially now or unofficially translated by Nintendo Everything, so huge shout out to them. I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for you guys to check it out for yourselves if you so desire. There's about 3 questions, but I'm only going to focus on 2 of them since they are the key takeaways here. One of the questions reads as follows: how much influence did previous titles like PS4's Monster Hunter World have in terms of performance? Director Ichinose's response is, it's only natural that the performance changes with the hardware. The truth is that the hardware was not the only different thing from World. The engine changed as well. We tested where we could see what kind of processing speeds we could achieve, and the Rampage mode in particular is one of the game's selling points. Interestingly enough, they're still talking about base Monster Hunter Rise in that regard, which has a lot of monsters appearing at the same time. We did a number of experiments to see just how many we could get to appear on screen all at once. We also spent a lot of time and had a variety of unique shaders made to see how beautiful we could get things to look on the Switch. So first and foremost, of course, interesting takeaway that you mentioned the Rampage, but of course now in Sunbreak, they're completely ignoring it altogether. This is something that I just recently spoke about in one of my most recent videos, where even anomaly investigation monsters don't necessarily appear in the Rampage, which I think would certainly be a good idea. But more importantly, they specifically talk about the processing capabilities of the Switch and just the hardware limitations that they had to deal with, to the point that in the follow-up questions they actually get to the nitty-gritty of it, and I found this extremely fascinating. And they continue with the interview. It's surprising to hear that the engine and the hardware were different, and his response says, prior to our testing, the frame rate couldn't break 10 FPS, and motion was very sluggish. We continued to test and improve until at the very end we were able to achieve 30 FPS. We also had some members of the technical team who were working on the game engine with the company provide support, and they gave us some ideas and solutions. Remember that this is the very first Monster Hunter game to run on the RE engine. Presumably the next titles will run on this engine as well, based on the fact that they're moving most of their assets into this brand new engine to be able to run it, and most Capcom titles are actually going to be running on the same engine as well heading into the future. So it's fascinating for them to mention that just a base level, the game was running extremely sluggish. 10 FPS is basically a slideshow at that point, but they optimized it and they tested it enough with some most likely shader compilation to be able to get it to run at 30 FPS, which is just interesting on its very own right. Also, you have to keep in mind that on the PC version of things, you can run it at 60 rather easily, and of course unlock the frame rates and get it to run, north of 200 as well. So this only shows the limitations of the system and what they were able to achieve with it, even with all that. Now, the last question that they had in this specific section, they mentioned, with the series' latest entry being a Switch release, were there any hardware differences you had to work around? Director Ichinose's response is, we looked for ways to play around with the control elements unique to the Switch, like its touchscreen. If you really think about it, we had to develop for 2 styles of play, docked and portable. In dock mode, for example, you're unable to use the touchscreen, and we made sure the game was playable even without those things. A remnant of the design that can be found through the ability to target monsters through touch, and those things can actually be used. We experienced with handheld mode options that only require players to extend their thumbs while playing. The game should be playable without any of those functions though, so we made a conscious effort to not use those hardware features. And I guess when you really think about it, there was the option back in the 3DS games that you can use the stylus, I guess it was, or I guess your finger if you wanted to be able to tap to target lock and stuff like that. There were some prompts on the screen available at some point in time. I believe it might have been for you or something like that, that you could do. But obviously no longer that's an option, and they specifically mention now that touch controls are not applicable into the game, because I guess it would have removed from the fact that you can only use that in handheld mode and not necessarily in docked mode. And of course, when it comes to PC play, it's just completely non-existent, unless I guess you're playing on the Steam Deck, but even that wouldn't necessarily be something that they even considered, since the game was being developed for the Switch long before the Steam Deck was ever announced. So it's interesting that they made those distinctions and decided to just basically stick to base controls and not necessarily muddle things up. But that's about all the information that they provided in this specific sections of this interviews. Once again, I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for the Nintendo Everything translation, unofficial translation, and of course, the original article from Nintendo Dream, which was posted a few weeks back. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya!